Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes. Today, we're diving deep into Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. It's a novel that's sparked a lot of debate over the decades, and we're going to try to unpack why that is.
Yeah, it really throws down a gauntlet, this book. It asks us to consider what it really means to be an individual, especially when, the whole world is pushing you towards conformity.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So for those who haven't read it, The Fountainhead follows Howard Roark. He's this architect with a radical vision who refuses to compromise his artistic integrity, even if it means facing rejection from the establishment.
Right, and that's really where the central conflict of the novel lies. It's this battle between individualism and collectivism,
Yeah.
between those who strive to create something new and those who just want to, maintain the status quo.
Absolutely. And Rand really doesn't shy away from exploring these themes. You see it in every aspect of the story, from the characters' relationships to the very buildings they design. We also see themes of integrity, the role of the artist in society, and the nature of true success.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating is that Rand embodies these clashing ideologies in her characters. You have Rourke, who is almost like this force of nature, driven by his own internal compass. And then you have someone like Peter Keating, his classmate, who's totally obsessed with success as it's defined by society.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The book opens with Rourke getting expelled from architecture school for refusing to conform to their traditional standards. Talk about making a statement.
Oh, absolutely. This scene throws down the gauntlet right from the start. The dean offers Rourke a chance to return if he conforms, but Rourke flat out refuses. He actually says, "But you're right, I don't fit in with this building." It's this powerful declaration of independence, a refusal to betray his own vision.
It's almost like he's saying, I'd rather fail on my own terms than succeed by someone else's rules.
Exactly. And that sets the stage for Rourke's entire journey. He's willing to face poverty, isolation, even ridicule, rather than compromise his artistic principles.
And that's where we see that stark contrast with Peter Keating. He's always chasing trends, seeking approval, and ultimately never finding true satisfaction.
Keating really embodies what Rand saw as the dangers of collectivism. He's constantly seeking validation from others, sacrificing his own creative impulses for the sake of fitting in.
And then you have Henry Cameron, this tragic figure who was once a great architect, but fell into obscurity because he refused to compromise. He becomes kind of like a mentor to Rourke.
Yeah, Cameron serves as both a warning and an inspiration to Rourke. He represents the potential pitfalls of uncompromising individualism,
Yep.
but also the importance of staying true to one's vision, even when the world turns its back on you.
Yeah, he gives that line, that gut-wrenching line to Rourke, where he warns him, "You'll see on a piece of paper before you a building that will make you want to kneel. You won't believe that you've done it, but you will have done it. Then you'll think that the earth is beautiful. You want to rip your insides open to show him. Because if he saw what's there, he'd have to let you put it up. But he'll say that he's very sorry. Only the commission has just been given to Guy Franson."
Cameron knows the pain of having your work rejected, not because it's bad,
Yeah.
but because it doesn't fit the mold. And he wants to prepare Rourke for that same struggle.
And boy, has Rourke faced that struggle. He gets fired from multiple firms because he refuses to design buildings that he sees as aesthetically or morally compromised. He even ends up working in a quarry for a while.
These early struggles are so crucial to Rourke's development. They really solidify his individuality, his willingness to stand alone, and they set the stage for his eventual triumph.
And it's during this time that he meets Dominique Franson. She's a complex character, fiercely independent, and immediately drawn to Rourke's genius.
Dominique is fascinating because she embodies both the attraction to and the fear of Rourke's uncompromising individualism. She sees his brilliance, his integrity, but she's also terrified of what it means to fully embrace that way of life.
Their relationship is passionate, unconventional, and definitely tumultuous. They challenge each other constantly, pushing each other to their limits.
Yeah, their dynamic is like a microcosm of the novel's central conflict, this clash between two powerful individuals, each striving to live authentically in a world that often demands conformity.
And then we have Ellsworth Toohey, the architectural critic who's pulling strings behind the scenes. To manipulate public opinion and gain power, he represents a very different kind of ambition than Rourke's.
Toohey is the embodiment of everything Rand opposed. He's this master manipulator who preaches selflessness and collectivism, while secretly craving power and control. He recognizes Rourke's genius, but sees it as a threat to his own worldview.
He understands that if people embrace Rourke's individualistic philosophy, it'll undermine his own attempts to control and manipulate them.
Exactly. And so he sets out to destroy Roark, using his influence as a critic to turn public opinion against him and sabotage his career.
And two, he's incredibly effective at what he does. He understands how to exploit people's insecurities and their desire to belong. He's like a master puppeteer, pulling the strings of society to achieve his own ends.
It's kind of frightening how subtly he operates, isn't it? He never comes across as like overtly villainous, yet his actions are arguably some of the most destructive in the novel.
So we have these opposing forces, these contrasting philosophies embodied in these larger-than-life characters. And the stage is set for an epic clash.
Absolutely. And it's a clash that plays out not just in the characters' personal lives, but also in like the very buildings they design, the art they create, and the impact they have on the world around them.
So let's talk about one of Roark's early triumphs, the Heller House. This is his first major commission, and it's a radical departure from the architectural norms of the time.
The Heller House is a perfect example of how Rand uses architecture as a metaphor for her philosophical ideas. The house is modern, functional, minimalist. It celebrates the power of the individual creator and rejects the ornate historical styles that were popular at the time.
It's like Roark is saying we don't need to be bound by the past. We can create something new, something that reflects our own time and our own values.
Precisely. And the reaction to the Heller House is so telling. Some people, like Austin Heller himself, see it as a masterpiece, a work of genius. But others are horrified. They call it cold, sterile, and human.
Yeah, it challenges their entire notion of what architecture should be. It throws their aesthetic and even moral values into question.
And that's exactly what Roark intends to do. He's not afraid to provoke, to challenge, to make people think differently.
This leads us back to the character of Dominique François, because she's immediately drawn to the Heller House. It speaks to something deep within her.
It's fascinating that she recognizes the brilliance of Roark's work before she even meets him. The Heller House is like a beacon to her, a symbol of the kind of authentic, uncompromising creativity she yearns for in her own life.
But it also terrifies her, because she knows that embracing Roark and his philosophy will mean challenging everything she's been taught about how a woman should behave, how she should fit into society.
It's such a powerful internal conflict. She's attracted to Roark's strength and independence, but she's also afraid of the power he has over her, the way he makes her question everything she thought she knew.
I'm really curious to hear more about Dominique's journey and how she navigates this attraction to Roark while simultaneously fearing his power.
Well, let's dive deeper into that in the next part of our deep dive, because Dominique's journey is crucial to understanding not only the romantic themes of the novel, but also the broader clash between individualism and collectivism that Rand explores.
Okay, this is getting really interesting.
She's a puzzle, isn't she, Dominique? You know, she sees the beauty and power of Roark's work, but she's also wary of it. It's like she understands what it would mean to fully embrace his philosophy, and it scares her.
Yeah, it's like she's torn between two worlds. On the one hand, there's the world of convention and social approval, which is represented by Peter Keating. And on the other, there's the world of radical individualism, embodied by Roark.
Exactly. And that tension plays out in her relationships with both men. She ultimately marries Keating almost as a way to punish herself for being attracted to Roark, to try to, like, deny that part of herself.
It's a strange decision, isn't it, to marry someone you don't love, someone who represents everything you despise.
Well, it speaks to the complexity of her character and the power of those societal pressures she's grappling with. You have to remember that this is a time when women were expected to conform to very specific roles. So Dominique's struggle for independence and self-discovery is even more profound given that context.
And let's not forget about Ellsworth Toohey. He's not just watching all this unfold. He's actively scheming to undermine Roark at every turn.
Toohey is like a parasite, you know, feeding off the insecurities of others. He understands that the best way to gain power is to make people dependent on him, to convince them that they need his guidance and approval.
And he does this through his writing, his manipulation of social circles, and his subtle undermining of anyone who threatens his influence.
He even manages to get Roark blacklisted from major architectural projects, forcing him to take on smaller, less prestigious commissions.
And one of those smaller commissions is the Stoddard Temple, which becomes another battleground for Roark's principles. He designs this beautiful minimalist temple that reflects his own understanding of spirituality.
Yeah, the Stoddard Temple is interesting because it shows how Roark's philosophy extends beyond architecture. You know, he's not just concerned with buildings, he's concerned with the human spirit, with the search for meaning and purpose.
But the religious leaders who commissioned the temple, they're ultimately uncomfortable with Roark's design. They find it too modern, too unconventional.
They want something that conforms to traditional religious aesthetics, something that reinforces their authority. Rourke's design, with its emphasis on individual interpretation and spiritual freedom, that threatens their authority.
And so once again, Roark faces rejection. Not because his work is bad, but because it challenges the status quo.
And this pattern repeats itself throughout the novel, highlighting the constant tension between Rourke's uncompromising individualism and the forces of conformity that seek to control him.
And it's not just the establishment that opposes Roark. He also faces resistance from fellow architects who see him as a threat to their own success.
They're intimidated by his talent, by his willingness to break the rules. They see him as a disruptor, challenging the very foundation of their profession.
And some of them, like Peter Keating, resort to plagiarism, stealing Roark's ideas and passing them off as their own.
It's a desperate attempt to stay relevant, to keep up with Roark's genius.
Yeah.
But it ultimately highlights Keating's own lack of originality and his dependence on the approval of others.
It's a vicious cycle, isn't it? The more Roark succeeds on his own terms, the more threatened those around him feel, and the more they try to tear him down.
It's a dynamic that plays out in so many areas of life, not just in the world of architecture. Anyone who dares to be different, to challenge conventional thinking, is likely to face opposition from those who benefit from the status quo.
So while Roark is facing all these external challenges, Dominique is still struggling with her own internal conflict, her feelings for Roark.
Right, she recognizes his greatness. But she's also afraid of it, afraid of what it would mean to love a man like Roark, a man who lives entirely by his own rules, a man who demands that same level of integrity and independence from those around him.
It's a level of intensity that she's not sure she can handle. So she keeps trying to distance herself from him to deny her attraction.
But fate, or perhaps Ayn Rand, has other plans. Dominique and Roark are drawn together again and again, their paths intertwining in ways that neither of them can fully control.
And one of those pivotal moments is the Enright House Commission. This is a project that Roark takes on out of pure compassion, designing this modest but beautiful home for a working-class family.
The Enright House is significant because it shows that Roark's individualism isn't about selfishness or egotism. He's capable of deep empathy and generosity. He believes in the power of individual creation to improve the lives of others.
And Dominique sees that compassion, that generosity, and it deepens her attraction to him.
But it also intensifies her fear, because she knows that if she fully embraces Roark, she'll have to confront her own deepest fears and insecurities. She'll have to let go of the need for social approval and embrace her own individuality.
It's a choice that she's not sure she's ready to make. And so she continues to push Roark away, even as she finds herself drawn closer to him.
It's a dance they do throughout much of the novel, constantly circling each other, attracted and repelled, testing each other's limits.
And all the while, Ellsworth Toohey is watching, waiting for the right moment to strike.
Toohey understands that the best way to destroy Roark is to attack him through those he cares about. And Dominique, with her complex feelings and her internal conflicts, she becomes a prime target for Toohey's manipulations.
This is getting really intense. I'm on the edge of my seat wondering what Toohey has up his sleeve and how Dominique will navigate this impossible situation.
Well, that's where things get really interesting, because Toohey's schemes will ultimately lead to a confrontation that will shake the foundations of Roark's world and force Dominique to make a choice. That will change her life forever.
So last time we were talking about Ellsworth Toohey plotting against Roark, using Dominique as a pawn in his game of destruction. What happens next?
Well, Toohey really sees an opportunity in the Cortlandt Homes project. This is that government-funded housing project that Roark agrees to design, but only if his plans are followed to the letter.
So he's not willing to compromise his vision, even for a project that could really benefit a lot of people.
Exactly. For Roark, integrity is everything. He believes that true art, true creation can only happen without compromise.
But Toohey sees this as his chance to kind of exploit Roark's principles.
Yeah.
And turn them against him.
Right. He manipulates the project from behind the scenes, convinces the other architects and bureaucrats to alter Roark's designs to make them, more conventional, more acceptable to the masses.
So Roark has no idea about this betrayal until the buildings are practically finished.
And he is furious. When he sees what they've done to his work, they've taken his vision of beautiful, affordable housing and turned it into something bland and uninspired, just a monument to mediocrity.
And that's when he takes matters into his own hands.
He dynamites the Cortlandt Homes project, reduces the whole thing to rubble. It's a radical act, even violent, but it's also a powerful statement about Roark's commitment to his principles.
He'd rather destroy what he created than see it corrupted, turned into something that completely violates his artistic vision.
And this act leads to Roark's arrest. And what follows is one of the most famous scenes in the book, the trial.
This is where he finally gets to explain himself, to defend his actions and his beliefs in a public forum.
And it's a powerful speech, one that really lays bare Rand's philosophy of objectivism. He talks about the importance of the individual creator, the right to think for oneself, the pursuit of rational self-interest.
He says man cannot survive except through his mind. He comes on Earth unarmed. His brain is his only weapon. Animals obtain food by force. Man has no claws, no fangs, no horns, no great strength of muscle. He must plant his food or hunt it. To plant, he needs a process of thought. To hunt, he needs weapons. And to make weapons a process of thought, nothing can be done without a process of thought.
It's this incredible declaration of independence, a call for individuals to embrace their own power, their own agency, their own right to create and shape the world according to their own vision.
So what does the jury say?
They acquit him. It's a victory for individualism, a total rejection of Toohey's attempts to control and manipulate.
So that's the end of it. Good triumphs over evil.
Well, not so fast. Toohey is still out there, lurking in the shadows, plotting his revenge.
Okay, so what does he do?
He turns his attention to Gail Wynand, this powerful newspaper publisher who has become fascinated by Roark.
Wynand's a really complex character. He's a man of great power and ambition, but he's also deeply flawed. He's built his empire by appealing to the lowest common denominator, manipulating public opinion for his own personal gain.
And he sees something in Roark, something he both admires and envies, that totally uncompromising spirit, that unwavering integrity.
And Toohey knows exactly how to use that.
He uses his influence to turn Wynand against Roark, convinces him that Roark's individualism is a threat to Wynand's own power and influence.
Plays on his insecurities, his fear of losing everything he's built.
And tragically, it works. Wynand betrays Roark, uses his newspapers to launch the smear campaign against him, and public opinion turns on Roark yet again.
That's a tough break, to be betrayed by someone he thought understood him.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking betrayal, especially for Roark, who had seen in Wynand a kindred spirit, another individualist who understood the power of defying convention.
But Roark doesn't let this get him down. He keeps creating, keeps building, keeps living by his own principles.
Yeah, right. And in the end, he finds redemption. Wynand realizes he was wrong. He sees the destructiveness of Toohey's influence. And he repents. Offers Roark one last chance to prove himself to the world.
Okay, so what is it?
The Wynand Building. This is Roark's masterpiece. A skyscraper that totally embodies his architectural philosophy and his unwavering spirit. It's a symbol of individual achievement, a monument to the power of one person, to challenge the status quo and create something truly extraordinary.
This is an amazing story. So where does Dominique fit into all of this?
Well, through all these ups and downs, Dominique has been on her own journey. She's been grappling with her feelings for Roark, with her own fears and insecurities, with the expectations of society that have tried to force her into a mold.
And what happens?
She chooses to embrace her individuality, is stand by Roark's side as his equal, not his possession or his shadow.
Wow, that's incredible.
It really is. It's a powerful moment of transformation. She sheds the constraints of convention, the expectations of society, and embraces a life of authenticity, a life lived on her own terms.
And the book ends with them together, standing on top of the Wynand Building, looking out at the city that Roark has helped to shape.
It's a beautiful image, a vision of hope, and a testament to the power of the individual spirit, to overcome adversity, to challenge convention, and to create a world that reflects its own unique vision.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. What are some of the key takeaways that you hope our listener will remember?
Well, I hope they'll come away with a deeper understanding of Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism. But even more importantly, I hope they'll be inspired by the power of individual conviction, the courage to stand up for what you believe in, even when everyone else is telling you to conform.
Yeah. The Fountainhead is a powerful reminder that we all have the power to create, to build it, to shape our own lives and the world around us. It's a challenge to be true to ourselves, to think for ourselves, and never give up on our dreams.
And maybe the most important question the book asks is this: what are you willing to fight for? What principles are so important to you that you would risk everything to defend them?
That's a really powerful thought. So to our listener, if you haven't already, definitely check out The Fountainhead. It's a book that will challenge you, provoke you, and stay with you long after you've finished reading it.
And remember, the power to create, to think, to be an individual, that's a power no one can ever take away from you.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into The Fountainhead. We'll see you next time on Books and Bytes.